All right, today we're tackling something fascinating, the interpreter's guide to the mind. We're going to explore how an idea actually gets from a lesson plan into a student's head. So let's just start with that big question, right? How does an idea travel from a lesson into a mind? It sounds simple, but it's not. And for a student who is deaf or hard of hearing, that whole journey has a really critical guide. And yeah, you guessed it, that guide is the educational interpreter. But their role? It's so much more than just being a conduit for language. Think of them more like architects of understanding. I mean, they're the ones responsible for communicating concepts that are brand new, totally abstract, or, just really, really tough. Because here's the thing, the real challenge, the absolute core of their work, isn't just about making sure the words are heard or seen. No way. It's all about helping the student build the concept inside their own mind. And that's a seriously complex cognitive task. It's not just simple translation. So to really get how they pull this off, we've got to look at the foundation of all learning, and that is cognitive development. Okay, so what is that exactly? Well, cognitive development is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a student's understanding of concepts and their ability to think and reason about them. You can think of it as the engine that drives all learning. Now, this is absolutely crucial. The potential for cognitive development, it's the same for every student. But for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, there's a key that unlocks that potential: linguistic access. Language is literally the tool that fires up the brain and helps build those cognitive skills. Okay, so how does the mind even begin to organize all this incoming information? Well, let's open up what we're going to call our cognitive toolkit and check out the first tool. All right, tool number 1 is something called a cognitive scheme. It's basically a mental framework, a structure the brain builds to organize information and just make sense of the world. And a really easy way to picture this is to think of a mental filing cabinet, right? Every single new thing you learn has to get sorted and put into the right folder. That way you can find it and use it later. Well, those folders, those are your cognitive schemes. See, this shows us that learning is a really active process. It's not passive at all. So imagine a little kid's mental filing cabinet. Their animal folder only has stuff like dogs and cats. Then one day they see a fish, and wait a minute, that doesn't fit. That creates this little mental puzzle, a conflict. To solve it, their brain has to do something called accommodation. It has to modify the filing cabinet, maybe by creating a whole new fish folder, or maybe making the animal folder bigger. That rewiring right there, that is learning in action. Okay, another huge tool in the kit is Bloom's taxonomy. You can think of it like a ladder of thinking. And for an interpreter, this is so important. Why? Well, they need to know if a teacher is asking a question that's just about remembering a fact, that's the bottom rung of the ladder, or if they're asking the student to, say, analyze or evaluate something. That's a way heavier cognitive lift, all the way at the top. Knowing the difference helps the interpreter get across the real mental work the question is asking for, not just the words themselves. So it's one thing to know about this ladder of thinking, but how do we actually help a student climb it? Let's dive into part 2 of our toolkit and look at how we build that real, deep understanding. And this quote really just hits the nail on the head. A student's ability to repeat a concept does not mean the student understands it. Wow. I mean, that's the absolute core challenge right there for any teacher, any interpreter. Because let's be real, there's a massive difference between just memorizing something and actually understanding it. Memorization, that's just being a parrot, right? Repeating words, but having no idea what they mean. But true understanding, that's when you can answer questions on the fly, explain it in your own words, or, and this is the big one, apply it to a totally new situation. So how do we get there? How do we build that deeper conceptualization? Well, the toolkit has some key strategies. You've got practice and repetition. That's what builds those mental pathways. You need real-world experience to anchor those abstract ideas. You need context to see how it all fits together. And of course, you've got to break down those huge, scary concepts into smaller, manageable chunks. So when you pull all of this together, you start to see it, right? The interpreter's job isn't just a list of tasks. It's a fundamental mission to help make real learning happen, not just memorization. And that really gets to the heart of everything. The whole goal of education isn't to stuff students' heads full of facts they can just spit back out on a test. It's about equipping them with thinking skills, skills they can use for their entire lives. And I just love this next idea. Think about students as little scientists. Seriously, they're out there exploring, they're experimenting, they're making mistakes.
and then there's self-correcting, all in an effort to figure out how the world works. And our job? Our job is to support that whole messy, beautiful process.
So let's leave it with this final thought. The goal here, especially with a great interpreter in the mix, isn't to fill a mind like it's an empty bucket. It's about building a mind, piece by piece, using the right tools. So the real question for you is, what tool are you going to use first?